Do you ever feel like you're stuck in an endless cycle of procrastination, knowing what you need to do, but never quite getting it done? Imagine having a foolproof plan to overcome procrastination once and for all. Well, today's episode, I'm going to show you exactly how I created that plan to overcome procrastination. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that plagues many of us, procrastination. But before we get started, did you know that according to a recent study, nearly 20% of adults identify themselves as chronic procrastinators? That's a significant portion of us who are struggling to get things done. But don't worry, because today we're going to tackle this head on. This episode is for you if you find yourself constantly putting off important tasks, or if you feel overwhelmed by your to do list, or you want to achieve more in both your personal or professional life, but just don't know where to start. If any of these sound like you, then this episode is definitely for you. By the end of this episode, you'll have a clear, actionable plan to overcome procrastination. You'll understand the root causes of procrastination. You'll learn the strategies that I use to stay focused and motivated and take steps towards achieving your goals. So, as Mark Twain once said, the secret of getting ahead is getting started. This quote, in my opinion, perfectly captures the essence of today's topic. Often, the hardest part of overcoming procrastination is simply taking the first step. But once you do, momentum builds and progress becomes inevitable. Today, we're going to cover three main points. Point number one is identifying root causes of procrastination. Point number two is developing a procrastination proof plan. And this is the plan that I use in my life and with my clients. And number three is maintaining momentum and staying motivated. So let's go ahead and get started with main point number one, identifying the root causes of procrastination. To beat procrastination, you first need to understand why you do it. Is it fear of failure, or perfectionism, or lack of clarity? For me, it was often a mix of perfectionism, fear of failure, and lack of clarity. I remember a time when I had an important presentation coming up. I kept putting it off because I wanted it to be perfect. It wasn't until I identified this fear that I could address it head on. So here's some actionable steps that you can take right now. Actionable step number one is reflect on your past experiences of procrastination and identify common patterns. Take some time to think about specific instances when you procrastinated and try to find any recurring themes or triggers. Number two is write down reasons you tend to procrastinate. By putting your reasons on paper, you can start to see them more clearly and understand what's driving your behavior. And number three is challenge these reasons by asking yourself if they're rational or if they're just excuses. Sometimes simply questioning our reasons for procrastination can help us see them in a different light. So now that we've gone through these actionable steps, let's dive into some coaching questions to help you reflect further and apply these concepts to your life. So ask yourself, what tasks do you usually procrastinate on and why? How do you feel when you're procrastinating? What small steps can you take today to start addressing these root causes? Now, let's go ahead and move on to point number two, which is developing a procrastination proof plan. Once you understand the root causes, it's time to create a plan. A procrastination proof plan involves setting clear, achievable goals, breaking tasks into smaller steps, and scheduling dedicated time for each task. So let's break this down into actionable steps that you can start implementing today. So task number one is set specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals, which is also called SMART. When you set SMART goals, you create a clear roadmap that makes it easier to stay on track. Number two is break your goals down into smaller, manageable tasks. Now, this approach makes large projects less overwhelming and makes them more achievable. Then number three is use a planner or digital tool to schedule these tasks, ensuring that you allocate time for each one. Scheduling helps ensure that you dedicate the necessary time and attention to each task. Now let's take these steps further with some coaching questions to help you apply this strategy effectively. What is your main goal for this upcoming week or for next week? How can you break this goal into smaller tasks? When will you dedicate time to each of these tasks? Now, let's go ahead and move on to our last and final point, which is point three, maintaining momentum and staying motivated. Creating a plan is one thing, but sticking to it is another. To maintain momentum, celebrate small wins, stay accountable, and remind yourself of your bigger purpose. So let's look at some actionable steps to help you stay on track. So, step number one is reward yourself for completing tasks, no matter how small. Number two is find an accountability partner or coach to help keep you on track. And number three is regularly revisit your goals and remind yourself why they're important. So, now that we've covered these steps, let's go ahead and dive into some coaching questions to help you maintain your momentum and motivation. How do you celebrate your achievements? Who can you share your goals with to help keep you accountable? What is your why behind your goals? So, let me share a quick story with you. Just recently, I was working with a client who struggled with procrastination. He had a big project due, but he kept delaying it because he felt just overwhelmed by everything. Together, we broke down the project into smaller tasks and scheduled time for each one. He started seeing progress and he gained confidence by that progress. By the project's due date, not only had he completed it, but he also exceeded his own expectations. This transformation all began with creating a clear, actionable plan. In today's episode, we tackle the challenge of procrastination by identifying common root causes, by developing a procrastination proof plan, and maintaining momentum. Remember that understanding why you procrastinate is the first step. Then break down your goals into smaller, manageable tasks and schedule them. Then finally, stay motivated by celebrating small wins and keeping yourself accountable. If you found this episode helpful and want more personalized coaching, click the link in the description to coach with me. Also, join the Unstoppable email community for more tips and strategies to help you succeed. Until next time, keep finding your path. E.